Well everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the Samsung Galaxy Tab A7 Lite and see how this particular tablet holds up in 2020. Now here's the thing, this is one of those tablets that came out many years ago that might not be the best type of tablet to buy any. This was a tablet that, brought a lot of stuff to the table in a budget performing standpoint. It came out in 2021, so it's one of those types of tablets that you look at and probably think to yourself like it's a decent option here and there. But I will probably tell you, for a lot of people out there are so many better tablets that I would recommend buying rather than this thing, and I'll break that down throughout this whole entire video. Now first things first, if you do want to just go ahead and pick up some tablets that I would recommend buying this year, links will be down in the description. You can get that from there and you can help support the channel at the exact same time. Now, starting off with the outside of the Samsung Galaxy Tab A7 Lite, on the front side, we're getting an 8.7-inch TFT LCD panel. And this type of tablet, it's a pretty decent panel for the most part. It's not a terrible, price for how cheap this tablet was at the time, but it really is not that great of a looking screen, to be completely fair with you. There's a little bit of bezel around it. The panel itself, the resolution is like 800 by 1340, but it's just a TFT LCD panel, right? TFT LCDs really aren't that great. Those are some of the cheapest ones you can basically buy, and that is essentially kind of an issue that you're going to be experiencing with this type of device. So, in my opinion, it's not the end of the world, it's not anything super insane, but that is one thing you're going to be noticing here with this type of device. So, in my personal opinion, although it's not the biggest deal in the world, it is a much better experience if you do go through and you do get a device that is going to be giving you a little bit of a better experience. And this type of tablet, from a display perspective, it really isn't that nice if I'm being honest. Now you are getting, still the charging port on this thing. You are getting, the standard type of build. It's basically an aluminum back and aluminum frame. You're getting plastic ends on this thing, so it's actually not like the cheapest feeling thing in the world. But once again, you do have to remember that this is one of those more so like budget tier tablets. So this was not supposed to be competing with the Galaxy Tab S8s or the, iPad, Pros. This was supposed to be competing with like, I don't even know, like a budget phone, I feel like. Like this is kind of where you're going with this. And it's funny because with these types of devices, Samsung does still give you like micro SD card slots. So it is a very interesting thing that ends up happening here, because you do have the capability of basically going through using these types of tablets and still expanding the storage, when in reality, a lot of devices out there don't even give you the capability of expanding the storage. So I would say that in of itself is a kind of a surprising thing going on here. Now on top of that, I would say another very big thing to keep in mind here too is that you are getting a standard camera on the back. You're getting kind of like a basic type of layout for the most part. There's not really anything super crazy going on here, but I would probably tell you for the most part, you're getting a fairly decent feeling tablet for how cheap this tablet is. I think that might be the best way to kind of explain it, that if you were to go through and use this thing on an everyday basis, you might notice that it doesn't feel as cheap as you may have probably expected, but as you probably would have guessed it, I probably would tell you to maybe look elsewhere. This tablet may not be the best thing to buy from that perspective. Now, when it comes down to software longevity, I'm pretty sure this tablet is already done getting software updates, so that is kind of a little bit of a disadvantage for this type of device. Like if you're going to go through and pick up a Samsung Galaxy Tab, you might notice that this thing is probably not going to be lasting that much longer here. So once again, that is a little bit of a disadvantage. Not the biggest deal in the world, but that is just one other thing that you're probably going to be noticing here. So once again, that's another very big thing to kind of keep in mind there as well. Now on top of that, another very big thing to kind of keep in mind here as well is the fact with the camera, it's a single 8 megapixel camera on the back. And then you're also essentially getting a 2 megapixel camera on the front. So this thing is a pretty basic type of lens when it kind of comes down to it. And that's just kind of what ends up happening when you're going to go through and pick up one of these types of tablets. So with this type of device, it's pretty basic, nothing insane or nothing crazy that we haven't already seen before. And once again, that is a little bit of a disadvantage here, right? Because this camera really isn't that great. I think you can film in like 1080p videos on the backside, and then that's kind of it, right? There's not really anything else like super insane that we haven't already seen before. And like I said before, that is a little bit of a disadvantage, because if you're going to go through and like pick up a device, it might be better if you were to go through and pick up a tablet that's going to be kind of giving you a better experience. And when it comes down to this thing, that's kind of what's going to end up happening here. So in my personal opinion, that is essentially what's happening here for the most part. And it's a little bit of a problem, not the biggest deal in the world. And it's not the worst camera of all time. But like I said, that is essentially going to be an issue that you're going to be running in here. So the camera itself really isn't that great. But from a price tag perspective, I've seen a lot of these things go for like super cheap. I bought mine with like a cracked screen. for really not that much money at all, which is kind of insane because, these things aren't like super terrible. But from a price tag perspective, I can see how a lot of people might look at this thing and really, really want it. But like I said before, in my personal opinion, even from a price tag perspective, it genuinely just doesn't make a lot of sense to go and buy one of these types of devices because of the performance and the software. So the software is already outdated. So why are people even interested in buying this device? It might just be because of the price tag, honestly. Now, a big thing to keep in mind here too is the performance of this type of tablet. So as you probably would have guessed it, this particular device isn't really giving you the best chipset of all time. It's giving you a MediaTek Helio P22T chipset inside with 2 to 3 to 4 gigabytes of RAM. So you could spec this thing out to multiple different RAM models if you really want to. But as I mentioned before, that is kind of the issue that you're running into here, is that even at a maxed out version of this type of device, you're kind of stuck, right? It's not going to be giving you these like massive performing, it's not giving you a really good chipset. It's kind of giving you a very, very like average type of chipset for the most part for that time for a budget tier chipset. It's not a Snapdragon. And for a lot of people out there, you might be looking at these types of devices, and I'll definitely tell you, you are going to be getting a much better experience in a lot of ways on some other devices out there rather than this one. So I say that to say, even with the Samsung Galaxy Tab A7 Lite, the performance really is not going to be that great at all, it's just not going to be a great experience. I will say though, there's an interesting thing going on here. The battery size is actually not bad. 5,100 milliamp hours. That really isn't a terrible performing battery life here. And I do think for these types of Samsung phones, these are somewhat of the better advantages for buying these types of devices, just because they're giving you pretty solid like battery life. So with a device like a Tab A7 Lite, this thing is going to be giving you pretty solid experience from a battery life perspective. It's not going to be terrible. It's not going to be that bad. And that is kind of an advantage here. Now, it's not going to be perfect, but because this tablet is such like a low resolution panel, it's not really going to be like the best looking tablet of all time. Because it's not performing like at a crazy high level, you're going to be getting like pretty decent experience from this thing, I would say, from that side. So once again, if you're looking at it from that perspective, you might be noticing that the battery life really isn't as bad as you probably or you might have expected it. So all in all, the thing I would definitely tell you here, right, is that if you're going to look through and buy a device, especially a tablet, it just doesn't make any sense to go and buy a tablet like this, in my opinion. There are so many better tablets to go ahead and buy, and this thing just doesn't make any sense at all. If you're open to like iPadOS and Android or other Android tablets, I think a Samsung Galaxy Tab S7 in the used market is a really good option. I think a Tab S7 FE is a really good option. I think an iPad 9th generation in the used market is a really solid option as well. So there are a lot of other options out there that I would recommend buying rather than probably this thing. So kind of keep that in mind. But I'm still a massive fan of these types of devices, and that's kind of how I see it. I like their Lite series, I like their FE series. I just don't know if I would necessarily recommend buying this one. So from that side, that kind of covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.